Welcome to Season 2, Episode 23 of the podcast, Ghosts, Demons, and Murder Oh My. My name is Hayden Crook, and I will be your host for today's episode on American Horror Part 2, The Lemp Mansion in St. Louis. Or St. Louis, my bad. I don't know why I said it like that. Source 1, Legends of America. Said to be one of the 10 most haunted places in America, the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri continues to play host to the tragic Lemp family. Over the years, the mansion was transformed from the stately home of millionaires to office space, decaying into a rundown boarding house. It was finally restored to its current state as a fine dinner theater, restaurant, and bed and breakfast. The Lemp family began with Johann Adam Lemp, who arrived in St. Louis from Eastwich, Eastwich, Germany in 1838, building a small grocery store at what is now Delmar and 6th Streets. He sold everyday household items, groceries, and homemade beer. The light golden lager was a welcome change from the darker beers that were sold at the time. The recipe handed down by his father was so popular that just 2 years later he gave up the grocery store and built a small brewery in 1840 at a point close to where the Gateway Arch stands today. Fun fact, I've been there. The Gateway Arch. Gateway Arch. Pretty neat. Lemp first sold his beer in a pub attached to the brewery, including St. Louis, to its first lager. Before long, Lemp found that the brewery was too small to handle production and storage and found a limestone cave south of the city limits. The cave, located at the present day corner of Cherokee and Day Manil, Place, could be kept cool by chopping ice from the nearby Mississippi River and depositing it inside, providing perfect conditions for the lagering process to run its course. Lemp's Wester Brewing Company continued to prosper and by the 1850s was one of the largest in the city. In 1858, the beer captured first place at the annual St. Louis Fair. A millionaire, by the time of his death, Adam Lemp died on August 25th, 1862, and his son William began a significant expansion of the brewery. He purchased a 5 block area around the storage house on Cherokee above the lagering caves. In 1864, a new plant was completed at Cherokee Street and Carondole Avenue. The brewery eventually covered 5 city blocks by continually expanding to meet the product demand. By the 1870s, the Lemp family symbolized wealth and power, as the Lemp Brewery controlled the St. Louis beer market, a position it maintained until Prohibition. In 1868, Jacob Fikert, William Lemp's father-in-law, built a house a short distance from the Lemp Brewery. In 1876, William Lemp purchased it for his family, utilizing it as a residence and an auxiliary office. While the home was impressive, Lemp immediately began renovating and expanding the 33-room house into a Victorian showplace. From the mansion, a tunnel was built from the basement through the caves to the brewery. When mechanical refrigeration became available, parts of the caves were converted for other purposes, including a natural auditorium and a theater. The underground oasis would later spawn a large concrete swimming pool with hot water piped in from the brewery boiling house and a bowling alley. At one time, the theater was accessible through a spiral staircase from Cherokee Street. By the middle 1890s, the Lemp Brewery gained a national presence after introducing the popular Falstaff beer, which another company still brews today. The Lemp Western Brewery was the first brewer to establish coast to coast distribution of its beer. At the same time he was building his own business empire, William Sr. also helped Pabst, Anheuser, and Busch get started. Amid the success, the Lemp family experienced the first of many tragedies when Frederick Lemp, William Sr.'s favorite son and heir apparent, died in 1901 at the age of 28. Frederick, who had never been in excellent health, died of heart failure. The devastated William Lemp was never the same, beginning a slow withdrawal. He was rarely seen publicly after his son's death. On January 1st, 1904, William's closest friend, Frederick Pabst, also died, leaving William indifferent to the details of running the brewery. Though he arrived at the office daily, he was nervous and unsettled. His physical and mental health began to decline, and on February 13th, 1904, he shot himself in the head with a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. November 1904, William Lemp Jr. took over as the new president of the William J. Lemp Brewing Company. Inheriting the family business and a vast fortune, he and his wife Lillian began to spend the inheritance. Filling the house with servants, the pair spent vast amounts on carriages, clothing, and art. Lillian was a beautiful woman who came from a wealthy family herself. She and William Lemp Jr. had married in 1899, and William J. Lemp III was born on September 26, 1900. For a long, Lillian became known as the Lavender Lady because of her fondness for the color. In addition to her lavender attire and accessories, she went so far as to have her carriage horse harnesses dyed lavender. Initially, Will enjoyed showing off his trophy wife, but Will was a player. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he was used to doing and acting as he pleased. When William began to tire of his beautiful wife, he demanded she spend her time shopping. Allotting her $1,000 a day, he gave her an ultimatum that she would get no more if she didn't spend it. In the meantime, Will was busy running the brewery during the day and pursuing all manner of decadent activities during the night. Holding lavish parties in the caves below the mansion, he would bring in numerous prostitutes for the entertainment of his friends. Enjoying the swimming pool, the bowling alley, and the free flowing beer, his friends who attended these lavish events were known to enjoy a high time in the earth below. Will's shenanigans caught up with him when he sired a son with a woman other than his wife. Today, there's no official documentation that this boy existed. However, the rumors that this boy was hidden in the mansion attic for his entire life have been prevalent over the years. According to St. Louis historian Joe Gibbons, when he interviewed a former nanny and a chauffeur who worked at the mansion long ago, they verified that the boy existed and was housed in the attic quarters that also housed the servants' rooms. Spawned from Will's philandering with either one of the many prostitutes or a mansion servant, the boy was born with Down syndrome. Total embarrassment to the family, the boy was hidden away from the world to cloak the Lemp's shame. Known today as the monkey faced boy, this unfortunate soul continues to show his presence at the Lemp mansion. Finally, William Jr. tired of his trophy wife and filed for divorce in 1908. Why she didn't take this step with all of his going ons could be nothing more than a sign of the times. The court proceedings surrounding the divorce became a major St. Louis scandal, with all four St. Louis newspapers devoting extensive front page coverage to the messy affair. The trial opened in February 1909 to crowds that flocked to the courthouse each day to witness a tale of drama, of violence, drunkenness, atheism, and cruelty. Virtually ignoring William's decadent activities, Lillian almost lost custody of William Lemp III because of a photograph presented at the trial that showed her smoking a cigarette. Ultimately, she regained custody of their son, but soon retired from the public eye. The only time she was ever seen wearing anything other than lavender was on the final day of her divorce proceedings, when she appeared entirely in black before the judge. With the divorce, Will's troubles had only just begun. In 1906, 9 large breweries in the St. Louis area combined to form the Independent Breweries Company, creating fierce competition that the Lemp Brewery had never faced. In the same year, Will's mother died of cancer on April 16th. Though the brewery's fortunes were continually declining, the Lemp Mansion was entirely remodeled in 1911 and partially converted into offices for the brewery. At the same time, William allowed the company's equipment to deteriorate without keeping abreast of industry innovations. By World War I, the brewery was barely limping along. William soon built a country home on the Merrimack River, to which he increasingly retreated. In 1915, he married for a second time to Ellie Lindbergh, the widowed daughter of the late St. Louis brewer Caspar Kohler. Then Prohibition came along in 1919. The individual family members were already wealthy, so there was little incentive to keep the brewery afloat. For a time, Will hoped that Congress would repeal prohibition, but finally gave up and closed the Lemp plant down without notice. When they came to work one day, the workers learned of the closing and found the doors shut and the gates locked. On March 20th, 1920, Elsa Lemp Wright, William's sister, the wealthiest heiress in St. Louis, shot herself just like her father had years before. Elsa was said to have been despondent over her rocky marriage. Liquidating the plant's assets and auctioning the buildings, William Jr. sold the famous Lemp Falstaff logo to brewer Joseph Griesdijk or 25,000 in 1922. The brewery buildings were sold to the International Shoe Corporation for 588,000, a fraction of its estimated worth of 7 million in the years before Prohibition. At the end of the Lemp's brewing dynasty, William Jr. slipped into a depression. Acting much like his father, he became increasingly nervous and erratic, shunning public life and often complaining of ill health. On December 29th, 1922, William shot himself in the heart with a 38 caliber revolver in the very same building where his father had died 18 years before. William II took his life on the main level of the mansion, just inside the entrance to the left. At the time of his death, the room served as his office. He was interred in the family mausoleum at Bellefontaine Cemetery in the crypt just above his sister Elsa. William's brothers, Charles and Edwin, had long ago left the family business, so with William Jr. gone, it seemed that the Lemp Empire had finally ended. Edwin had entered into a life of seclusion at his estate in Kirkwood, Missouri in 1911. Charles had never been involved in the brewery and had chosen to work in the banking and real estate fields instead. In 1943, yet another tragedy occurred when William Lemp III died of a heart attack at the age of 42. Brother Charles eventually remodeled the mansion back into a residence and lived in the house along with two servants and the illegitimate child of his brother William. Charles, too, became an odd figure as he grew older. Developing a morbid fear of germs, his obsessive compulsive disorder included always wearing gloves to avoid bacteria and constantly washing his hands. During this time, William's illegitimate child, now in his 30s, died at the mansion. He was buried on the Lemp cemetery plot with only a small flat marker with the word Lemp. Shortly after the monkey faced boy's death, Charles became the fourth member of the Lemp family to commit suicide. First, he shot his beloved Doberman Pinscher in the mansion's basement, then, climbing the staircase to his room on the second floor, he shot himself. Charles was discovered on May 10th, 1949, by one of his staff, still holding a 38 caliber Army Colt revolver in his right hand. Though the dog was shot in the basement, he was found halfway up the stairs. One of the Lemps, of the Lemps, only Edwin Lemp, who had long avoided the life that had turned so tragic for the rest of his family, remained. He was known as a quiet, reclusive man who had walked away from the Lemp Brewery in 1913 to live peacefully on a secluded estate in Kirkwood, Missouri. Edwin passed away quietly from natural causes at age 90 in 1970. According to Edwin's last wishes, his butler burned all of the paintings that the Lemps had collected throughout his life and priceless Lemp family documents and artifacts. These irreplaceable pieces of history vanished in the smoke of a blazing bonfire. The Lemp family line died out with him, and the family's resting place can now be found in beautiful Bellefontaine Cemetery. After the death of Charles Lemp, the mansion was sold and turned into a boarding house. The building began to deteriorate along with the nearby neighborhood, and the haunting tales began. Residents complained of ghostly knocks and phantom footsteps being heard throughout the house. As these stories spread, tenants were hard to find for the boarding house, and it continued to decline to a near flophouse status. However, in 1975, the old mansion was saved when Dick Pointer and his family purchased it. Immediately, they renovated the building, turned it into a restaurant and inn. Workers within the house often told stories of apparitions, strange sounds, vanishing tools, and a feeling of being watched. Frightened by the hauntings, many would leave the job site never to return. Since the restaurant opened, staff members have reported several strange experiences. Again, apparitions appear and then quickly vanish. Voices and sounds come from nowhere, and glasses will often lift off the bar, flying through the air by themselves. On other occasions, doors are said to lock and unlock by themselves, lights inexplicably turn on and off of their own free will, and the piano bar often plays when no one is near. Said to be haunted by several members of the Lemp family, there are three areas of the old mansion that have the most activity: the stairway, the attic, and what the staff refers to as the gates of hell in the basement. This area of the basement used to be the entrance to the caves running below the mansion and the brewery. The attic is said to be haunted by William Jr.'s illegitimate son, referred to only as the monkey faced boy. This poor soul, born with Down syndrome, spent his entire life locked in the attic of the Lemp mansion. Strange occurrences are often witnessed on the third floor of the mansion. The face of the boy has regularly been seen from the street, peeking from the small windows of the mansion. Ghost investigators have often left toys in the middle of the room, of his room, drawing a circle around them to see if the objects have been moved. When they return the next day, the toys are consistently found in another location. Many women have reported a man peeking over the stall in the downstairs women's bathroom, which was once William Jr.'s personal domain and held the first freestanding shower in St. Louis. On one such occasion, a woman emerged from the bathroom, returned to the bar, and told the two men she was there with, "I hope you got an eyeful." However, the two men quickly denied ever leaving the bar, which the bartender verified. The ghost is said to be that of the womanizing William Jr. In William Lemp Sr.'s room, guests have often reported hearing someone running up the stairs and kicking at the door. When William killed himself, William Jr. was known to have run up the stairs to his father's room and, finding it locked, began to kick the door to get into his father. Several years ago, a part-time tour guide reported hearing the sounds of horses outside the room where William Lemp Sr. had kept his office. However, nothing was there when the tour guide looked through the window. This area north of the mansion and now used as a parking lot was once utilized as a tethering lot for horses. The mansion has been featured in several magazine articles and newspapers, and now attracts ghost hunters from around the country. Today, it features a bed and breakfast with rooms restored in period style, a restaurant featuring fine dining, and a mystery dinner theater. Tours are also available at the mansion. The Lamp Mansion is located at 3322 De Manil Place, a short distance from the Mississippi River. To get there, take Broadway from Interstate 55 and follow that to Cherokee Street, go west on Cherokee, and turn right onto De Manil Place. Doesn't sound like a fun place to visit. I mean, not like fun, like, like, yeah, we got all this stuff, but I'm like, with all this stuff going on, I don't think I want to stay there and do a mystery dinner, bed and breakfast. Yeah, it'd be cool to check out, but I probably wouldn't want to stay overnight there. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Ghosts, Demons, and Murder Oh My. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can get all the updates, information, and content that will be uploaded. Thank you for the support and for listening to my podcast. Episode ideas or recommendations are welcome as always, and I can be reached via email at hiddencrook8@gmail.com.